Hello and welcome. In this session, we will learn about workflows in Jira. We will go step by step and learn what is a workflow. We will then see demo on how do we edit an existing workflow, how do we create a new workflow, and then when we create a new workflow, how can we assign the workflow to a project, and then we will also learn how do we add workflow rules. This is going to be very easy and very interesting. Whenever you have any questions, you can let me know. So let's get started and first understand what is a workflow in Jira. So in very simple words, when we create a issue, it goes from one status to another status. Like when we create a issue, it is in open status, then it goes to in progress, then maybe done. There can be other statuses as well. So whatever statuses it goes through or the path it goes through is called a workflow in Jira. Okay, so it is a series of stages or the statuses that an issue goes through from creation to resolution. So there can be different workflows based on your requirement, based on the project. So a very simple workflow can be from open to in progress to done. Another workflow can be from open to assigned to in progress to completed. Then there can be another workflow like open to in progress to done to in review to completed to closed, etc. So you can create your own workflows based on your needs, based on the project needs. So in very simple words, a workflow in Jira is the path an issue takes from creation to completion. Okay, now with this knowledge, let us see a demo and let us do practical hands-on on how to edit an existing workflow. So let us go to our project. You must have already logged into your Jira account. I have logged into my account in Jira. So I am on my Jira here. Step number one is go to the project board and we can then go to manage workflow. So let me show you. I will go to any of my projects. Let me go to this project. Okay, here you will see your board and then here you will see these three dots. Okay, and when you go here, you can say manage workflow option. So you can go from here. When you go from here, it will take you to your workflow like this, or the other way is you can go to your project settings. So when you go to your project settings, so here is my project, and if I go to my project settings from here, and if you find a option workflows, you can directly go there. If you don't see workflows, you can go to issue types, and then here you will see an option to edit workflow. So this is the existing workflow that we can edit. Okay, another thing is when you go to your project, you will see your project board here and you can actually see the workflow. So you can see here is a very simple workflow. We have a to do status, then it goes to in progress, then it goes to done. Now this number 2 means we have 2 issues in this particular status. Okay, so this is a workflow, to do, in progress and done. And if you want to update something directly here on the board, if you want to update the workflow like add one more status, you can just click on this plus button to create a column, and then let us say I will say after done I want to add in review and click on this tick mark, so it will generate the column. And let's say I want to have this in review before done, so you can drag and drop it like this. Okay, so now you can see the workflow is updated. We have to do, then in progress, then review, and then done. And you can also check if I go to these three dots and go to manage workflows, you can see it has come here, in review has come here. Okay, so these are the options. You can go to click on the three dots and then go to manage workflow, or you can go to project settings, issue types, and edit workflow. And then to edit a workflow, we have already seen a direct way is from the project board itself. You can add or remove columns, and also you can remove the columns. So you can just add and remove columns from here. So you can add or remove columns from here, and then if you want, you can also move these columns. Okay, so you can see we can delete the column as well. Okay, we can also set the column limit, the maximum number of issues that can be there in this particular status. Okay, now once you have gone into the workflow editor, so let us say I will directly go from here. I will go to manage workflows, and once you are in this editor, so here you can update or edit your workflow. So here you can see we have statuses, we have to do statuses, in progress status is, done status, transition, and rule. So these are the things we can add to our workflow. And then you can also see the diagram here. You can move the diagram from here as well. Okay, and you can zoom in or zoom out from here. Okay, so here let me first show you. Let us say if you want to add something. Example, I want to add a to-do status, which is I want to add a completed status here. Okay, and I will add it here. So it has come here. Okay, and then we also have these transitions. So we can add transition. That means the transition from one status to another. We can add a rule or transition. So first I will add a transition. So if I want that after in review, we should move to the completed status. So from here, I will take it like this and drop it here. So it has created a transition from in review to completed, and I can give some name. So I will say the name of this transition is review done, and I will say created. So you can see this transition has been created. Okay. So we can add a transition as well. So transition is the action taken to move an issue from one status to another. Okay, so for example, if you are moving an issue from to do to in progress, you can add a transition which is that the issue must be assigned, and then only it can move from to do to in progress. And then you can also add rules for this transition. We will learn about rules. So you can also add rules for this transition. In rules, we can add some validations that when this transition happens, this particular field should not be empty, or this particular field should be filled by the user. All these kind of rules we can do, which we will learn in a moment. But this is a very, very simple way to edit and update the workflow. So once you have done, you can update the workflow. Click on update workflow, and when updating, you can also select the issue types that this workflow will implement to. So let's say I don't want this to implement to subtask. I can remove subtask from here. I want it to available for all these issue types, and I will save and continue. Okay, so you can see once you have done, you can also check here. This is done. I will say go back. So here you can also see here. You can here also check that if you want to add some statuses to the board, you can drag and drop it like this. Otherwise, I will just go back and close it. And let us go to the back to the project. Okay, so we have updated the workflow. Now here you can see we have got these columns, and if you don't see a column, that means either there is no issue in that column, so or that particular status. So if I click on this configure board from here, you can again see that particular window, and if you want, you can add this here wherever you want it to get added. So based on your needs, you can do it, and you can then check your board. Okay, now this is how we can edit and update and workflow. Also, when you go to your workflow, when you go to this workflow, you can see here we have options. If you want to see the transition labels, you can check this so that you can also see the transition labels. And then here is a help button. So when you click this, it will show you how do you use the workflow diagram, and it will also show you some keyboard shortcuts that you can use while creating and updating this workflow diagram. So this can be handy, and you can check this. Okay, so this is how we edit an existing workflow. Now let us see how do we create a new workflow, and for that you can go to the settings and then go to workflows. So I will close this. Okay, I will go to the settings from here, and then here I will go to issues, and then here on the sidebar you should find workflows here. Okay, and here we have option to add a workflow. Now there are some already created templates and workflows that you can get from the marketplace, so you can get it from here, which can be very quick and easy option. But if you want to create your own workflow, you can click on this create new button. Okay, and then you can give a name. So here we can, this is what we have done, step number 1 and 2. Then we will create the workflow as needed. So let me first create a name for the workflow. I will say this is my sample workflow, and I will say this is a sample workflow for demo, and click on create. Okay, so this will take you to this window where you can create your workflow, and we have options to see the diagram, and then you can create a workflow as we have seen earlier when we were updating a workflow. And then we also have the text format. So if I go to text, you can just keep on adding the new statuses or steps here and keep on adding the transition as well. So you can see one step is already added, that is open, and the status is open, and if you want you can add transition. So I think it is good to do it from diagram, because visually also we can see what is happening. We also have options to export it to XML or as a workflow. So for now you can see editors as well, you can change the editor. For now I will go to the diagram mode, graphical mode, and here we will create a workflow. So you can see we already have the open status, and then I will click on add status, which I will say status. You can also select from here, I will say in progress, and then we also have option allow all statuses to transition to this one. So if I check this and say add, you can see here we get a in progress status, and here you can see all. That means from any status we can move to this particular status. So whenever a user is updating the issue, updating the statuses, he may be in any of the statuses for that particular issue, he will be allowed to move to this particular status. Okay, and I will add it here, and then I also want to add a transition, so I can just drag it and drop it an arrow like this. So that will add a transition. So from open to in progress, I will say this is when the issue is assigned to somebody. So I will name this transition as assigned. Description is optional, and I'll just add it. So you can see this is now added like this. Okay. Then after in progress, I can say add a status. I will say done and add. So this is the done status. And if I want to add a transition from in progress to done, I will also add this, and I will say this is work completed and say add. Okay, then I will add a status. After this it should go to, after done it should go to in review. Let me see if there is an option in review. It's not. I will add in review status and click on add. So it has come here, and then again if I want to add a transition, I can add a transition, that is sent for review or review started, whatever you want to give the name, you can add it like this. Okay, and after in review I want to add a status, let us say completed. So I will say completed and say add. Okay, now see, when we are adding these statuses we also have a category. So this is in the done category, so this is also you can add, and I will add it like this. And again if you want to add a transition, you can add a transition like this, and I will say review completed successfully, or just review completed, and add. So you can see this is how it looks like. Okay, so now we have done this. Here you can see as of now it is saying this workflow is inactive. Okay, so you can here see this is as of now inactive. So what we have to do is go to workflow schemes. Okay, and here you can see your inactive workflows. You can see your active and inactive workflows, and I will click on this add workflow scheme, and I will say my workflow scheme. You can name it anything. This is a sample workflow scheme for demo, and add it. Okay, and then you can add the workflow. So I will say add from existing, and here is my sample workflow that I just created, and you can see this is what we created. You can also check here my sample workflow, and I will say next. And you can also assign the issue types, so what all issue types you want to assign here, and then finish. Okay, so now if I go, you can also see the workflow here. Now if I go to workflows, and let me go to workflow schemes again, and if you go to, you can check in active or inactive. So as of now, here it is in inactive scheme. Okay, so for this I will go to let us say I will go to settings and go to project, and here let me go to any of the projects here. I'll go to this project, and now if I go to project settings, and let us see if you find a workflow option here. So as of now I don't see a workflow option, so let me see here. I'll go back to project and say manage workflow. Let me just go back to, I'll go to the settings, issues, and workflows. So this may also be due to the permissions and the type of project we are using. So let me try to, you can check for your permissions and you can check with your team. Let me try to view all projects from here. And if I say, if I want to create a new project or import a project, let us see if I can import some project for software development, and let us say a Scrum project, and or maybe I'll say create project. I will create a Kanban project, and I will select this sample project demo. Next. And in case you go to project settings and if you see a workflows option here, then you should be able to directly add a workflow that you have created. Otherwise you can check for, let me see, if I get a sample business project, maybe there you will get options. Or let me show you in my other Jira. I have this Jira where I have this uh, some Scrum project. This is a sample Scrum project. If I go here and if I go to project settings, and here you can see I get a option to see the workflows here. So if I go to workflows, and here you can see I get a option to add workflow directly here, or I also get a option to switch scheme. So if I go here and say switch scheme, you can see I will have all my schemes here, and then I can select the scheme that I want to associate with this project. So this is how you can go. You should have a workflows option here, and then you should be able to switch the workflow scheme. All right. So this is how you can create a new workflow, create a workflow scheme, and then assign the workflow to a project. So this is what we have to do. From project properties, go to workflows, and then you can switch the scheme from there. Okay. Now there are also some workflow rules. So in any workflow, you can select some transition. So let us say if I go to any of the workflows, let me go back to my project, and I will go to edit workflow. You can see we have a rule here. So if you click on add rule, you can select any rule. For example, if you want to restrict this some transition based on some particular thing, for example, restrict when a field is has a specific value or is not empty, or if you want to validate a field, all that you can do. Okay, and you have to select a transition for this. So whatever transition you want, like any status, start, etc. So let me show you. You have some transition. Let's say from in progress to done, I create a transition. I will say this should be work completed, or let us say when I have to from to do, I have to transition from to do to in progress. I say this means work is assigned. That's why it has gone to in progress. Okay, so you can see this is work is assigned here. Now I select this transition. I will select this transition, and then you can see here, once I select this transition, it is shown here, the details are shown here, and here we have the rules. So I can create rules from here, or I can also add from here and then select the transition, or I can directly go to the transition and add the rules from here. So step number one is we will select any transition and then click on rules and then select the rules as we need. For example, I will go here and say I want to validate the details. I want to validate a field. You can also search rule from here or directly see the rules and select the rules and select, and then I want to say that for this transition, I want to validate a field is not empty, and the field I want to choose is assignee. So whenever this transition has to happen only when the assignee field is filled or the assignee field is there. Now there is also an option validate fields excluded by context. So this means that if that for that particular workflow or that particular issue, this field is not there, then do we want to fill this transition or not? So this is what you can check here. So I will just go it with this. So if you want to that this should not fail, if the field is not there, then you can say validate fields excluded by context. Otherwise you can keep it empty and say add. So you can see the rule is now added here. So whenever from to do or any status, whenever it will go to in progress, the assigned field for that issue should not be empty. So I will say update workflow, and you can also select the issues that it will be assigned to and save. And we have already learned in the issues section that if you go to any of the issues, for example, you go to project settings, you go to the project settings and go to issues, issue types, and then you can select the issue type, and then you can drag and drop the fields here. So for example, assignee field is already here. If it is not here, you can always drag and drop it from here, and then you can also create custom fields from here. Okay, so this is how you can add the rules in your transitions in the workflow. So this is how you can work with workflows. You can see the workflows, edit the workflows, manage the workflows, create new workflows, and then also assign workflow rules. I hope this was very useful. I will see you in the next session. Thank you for watching and never stop learning.